Hi, everyone. Okay, so the other day on Instagram, I posted a Q&A box. It wasn't even a Q&A. I was talking in my stories that day about how a lot of times women, and I'm sure men have their own version of this. I'm sure everyone has their own version of this, but because I primarily work with women, this is a pattern that I see where women sometimes can be very afraid of discovering their full potential, whether that is earning potential. That's always been a really big one for me. And I'll explain that in a minute. They're like potential for beauty or radiance or charisma or warmth, their potential for magnetism, um, their potential for creativity, right? There's this fear of what if I become so radiant or so successful or so happy that my partner, it's always the partner, the boyfriend, the husband, whatever, doesn't love me anymore, or like it changes his feelings for me. And I think the knee jerk reaction to that is often a very uncompassionate one. And often I'll hear or see coaches give the response of, well, boy, bye, like, fuck him. If he can't accept you at your brilliance or at your radiance, then he doesn't deserve you. And while I guess that's true in a certain way, shape, or form, when I really sit down and think about it, and I think about the men in my life, I don't actually literally know a single man that doesn't want their wife, their girlfriend, their partner, their daughter, their friends to be happy. That's actually like happiness. That's what radiance is connected to. Okay. The radiant woman is a happy woman. The only people who don't like happy people are narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, right? When we are triggered, when we are not one of those things, we're not mentally unwell, and we are triggered by another person's happiness or joy or radiance or light, it's not because we are awful, selfish human beings that don't want that person to be happy. It's a fear response, right? So if you start growing and evolving and you notice that your partner is struggling with that, here's a caveat to this too. A lot of times you guys will tell me, I know he wouldn't. I know he wants me to be happy. I know he wouldn't care if I start making more money than he does. And so for a lot of you, this is like ancestral. This is ancient. This is old. This is not necessarily about your partner in front of you. But say it is. Okay, you start growing or evolving or, all of these things, and that you notice that your partner is agitated about it, right? And they're not able to own that what they are experiencing is a fear. They're afraid that they are going to lose you. They are afraid that you are going to elevate so high that you elevate beyond them. And that is actually good because that is the thing that keeps the spark alive, in my opinion. When someone sees you constantly growing and evolving and getting better, it means that you are constantly, um, I don't want to say unattainable or like that you're being chased or anything like that, but it keeps the spark alive because that spark, attraction, desire, what is required for that is difference or distance or space. And so it's this ironic thing where you guys are so afraid of, if I keep doing this, he will love me less. But he's likely to actually love you more because it keeps that spark alive, especially if he is a confident human being. Here's where this does get tricky. There are definitely insecure, jealous people out there who do not want to see you shine. And if that is really the case, if that is really what's going on, like your partner is so wrapped up, so self-absorbed, so caught up in their own insecurities and fears that they can't want the best for you, you need to really take a look at that of like, is there something that I'm doing that is contributing to this, right? Because sometimes we contribute to our partner's anxieties or fears without realizing that we are. So you need to take accountability for your side of things. But then you also need to ask yourself, am I going to spend my life with someone who doesn't want what's best for me, right? Most of you, your partners are going to love you stepping into your radiance and your happiness and your joy, right? Most of you are going to experience a lot more of the good things out of life as you become more and more yourself because you start to attract in more opportunities, you become more magnetic, and you're happier. And when we're happier, we are just more attractive, more resilient, less stressed out, all of these different kinds of things. And so, um, I do think that this is complicated, and I don't want to brush it all with just one brush. I'd have to actually work with you one on one and really get a feel for where are these fears coming from? Is this rooted in childhood? Is this something that your mother experienced? Is this, rooted in a real like a reality, right? Is there something that you could do that would trigger you to um just be too big, too bright, too brilliant, and your partner would leave you, right? And then we also have to look at like, okay, if that does happen, are you financially safe? Is that a viable option, right? This is all messy. And sometimes we like to make things really succinct, but it's messy, right? So here are some things that I think are just important to keep in mind, just some ideas, some beliefs that I have that help me to combat some of those fears when I have them. The first is that my life, okay, is my responsibility. It is nobody else's responsibility in my life to make me happy or to make sure that I'm successful or to make sure that I realize my full potential. When I look at who I want to be in my life, I want to be a happy, radiant, creative, generous, loving woman who has a community of people around her who are supporting her, who I am also supporting, right? I want longevity in my life. And by that I mean I want to age really well and like be able to like run around with my grandchildren. Like there are a lot of things that are really, really important to me. And because I know that I will not get those things if I do not deliver those things to me, especially my happiness, that is my priority. That's my top priority. I personally would not ever date somebody who seemed to be triggered by my light. Of course, this is challenging. If you're already married, you might have to have some really challenging conversations. If I was married to someone who was really triggered by my happiness, I would be having conversations around like, this needs to change because I can't be miserable with you just because you're miserable. If you want to be miserable, fine, but I'm not going to be miserable. And then I would also be looking at like, okay, we are a team, we are married. If you don't want me to be happy, it's because you're not happy. So, what also do we need to do as a team to increase your health and well being, right? That is assuming that you married a good person. If you didn't marry a good person, you might have to take a look at some things. A second belief that I have that helps me to keep going when I have these fears of, triggering other people's jealousy or insecurity, or these fears of like, I think it's a very common fear of, I touched on this at the beginning, of if I'm too successful or I'm too capable as a woman, then I won't be loved or taken care of. I am an eldest daughter. I was heavily parentified in childhood. I like being taken care of. And when I first started my business, I had a really big fear of like, oh, I'm going to become a millionaire. And then I'm going to have to take care of everything. I'm going to be doing all the emotional work, all of the financial work, all of these different things. And so I think we have to understand that the world is changing so much, and that there are still a lot of, especially if you date men, there are still a lot of men out there who love to take care of you and want to be of use in your life. They want to know that they are needed. They want to know that they are valuable. And learning how to accept that help and also how to evoke that response in people is a whole other masterclass. But I think it's really important to understand that you always get to kind of set the terms and conditions for your relationship. And just because you're becoming more successful doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a partner out there that loves and adores that in you, right? And especially, this comes to our third point. I personally know that I will end up with a soulmate, okay? This is a bit different than if you're already married, but I think you can tweak this to work for you. Um, I also want to caveat, I don't think we only have one soulmate. I think we have multiple. And my belief is that depending on our level of growth, we get different soulmates. So I personally, because I have that belief, the more I grow, the more I believe that I'm going to attract a better match for me. Like, oh, now I'm evolving and therefore my soulmates are evolving, right? But I often think about this of like, my soulmate and your soulmate is someone who wants me to be my most brilliant self, my happiest self, my most radiant self, my most successful self. My soulmate ideally is a partner on my path, right? And I am a partner on theirs. So when I am looking at choosing a partner, I'm always looking at, do I trust where you're going? Like, do I like who you are? Do I like what you stand for? Do I respect you, essentially? And do you, even if you don't, even if we're different, do you at the very least respect my mission, my work, my path, and my way of being? Do you respect what I'm here to do on the planet? And I don't even need my business in that. I actually think that my business is something I do to kind of like get the creativity out of me. I'm a very creative person. I have to like constantly be creating. I don't necessarily think the Cosmic Laundry is my like soul mission. I actually think my quality of being is my soul mission. And with that quality of being is someone who is warm, open, sensitive, expressive, all of those things. And so, if that is my mission to be all of those things, my soulmate is going to be someone who is going to support the growth of those qualities. If I meet someone and they start kind of trying to like dampen that fire, or they're like, I don't like the way you do this and I don't like the way you do that. If these are things that are core parts of my being, and especially if they're things that are not hurting them, I know right away. I'm like, that person is not my soulmate, because my soulmate is going to want me to be fully expressed, obviously, while still being respectful of what they need. And I think the way that you could really shift that into the marriage or the long-term relationship conversation is just having these conversations often with your partner about, who do you want to become? Like, who are you trying to become? What do you think your highest self is? What does that version of you look like? When you are 70 years old and you're looking back at your life, who do you want? Like, what do you want to see playing, right? Who do you want to be? And how can I support you in becoming more of that? And I think that if you're both doing that for each other, then you're going to have a lot of connection and intimacy in your marriage and in your relationship. And you're not going to be afraid of growing. You're not going to be afraid of your partner growing and outgrowing you, because you are in on their mission. You know where they're going. You have a role to play. You're helping them, right? And so you feel pivotal. You don't feel like they're leaving you behind. And vice versa. If they're doing the same for you, then you feel like you're doing it as a team. And then every win for you is a win for them, and vice versa. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers your question. If you need more clarification, just let me know. Leave a comment or send me a DM on Instagram. Bye, everyone.